The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built by any species. It floated at the center of Nexus Prime Station, a structure so big that it had its own weather. 12 seats rose in a circle, each one holding a representative from the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the known universe. Below them, standing on a small platform, was a single human woman. Ambassador Elena Vasquez had made this walk 47 times in her career. Her predecessor had made it hundreds of times before her, and his predecessor before him. For 300 years, humans had walked into this room to ask the same question. For 300 years, they had received the same answer. The Velthari delegate spoke first. His skin glowed with soft blue light, a sign of his species' advanced evolution. His voice echoed through the chamber with practiced patience, the kind used when speaking to children. "The Council has reviewed humanity's petition for full membership," he said. "We appreciate your continued interest in galactic affairs. However, after careful consideration, we must once again decline." Elena's face showed nothing. She had expected this. "Humanity remains a young species," the delegate continued. "Your civilization is barely 10,000 years old. You have only possessed faster-than-light travel for 4 centuries. Your average lifespan is still less than 150 years. These factors make it impossible for you to contribute meaningfully to decisions that affect civilizations millions of years old." The other delegates nodded in agreement. The Cretan representative, a massive creature covered in armored plates, made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Perhaps in another 1,000 years, the Velthari finished, humanity will be ready for greater responsibility. Until then, you may continue in your role as observers. This hearing is concluded." Elena remained on her platform. She did not move toward the exit. "If I may," she said, her voice calm and clear. The delegates looked at each other. This was not normal. Humans usually accepted their rejection quietly and left. They were known for being cooperative. It was one of the few things the Council actually liked about them. "The United Earth government thanks the Council for its consistency," Elena continued. "After 300 years and 847 rejections, we have come to understand our place in the galactic order." The Velthari delegate's glow flickered with confusion. "Then you accept our decision?" "We understand it," Elena said. "Which is why I am here to deliver a message, not to receive one." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small data chip. "Effective immediately, Earth invokes Article 7 of the Observer Compact. We are withdrawing from all Galactic Council agreements, treaties, and cooperative arrangements." Silence filled the chamber. The Cretan delegate leaned forward. "Withdrawing? You cannot simply leave." "Article 7 says we can," Elena replied. "Any observer species may terminate their participation with 90 days' notice. We are providing that notice now. In 90 days, all human personnel will return to Earth. All human technology currently on loan to Council species will be recalled. All service agreements will end." The delegates began talking among themselves. Elena could hear words like ridiculous and tantrum and children. The Velthari delegate raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said slowly, "Earth has been part of the galactic community for 3 centuries. You benefit greatly from our protection, our trade networks, our technology sharing. Walking away from all of this would be unwise." Elena smiled. Several delegates found the expression strange and unsettling, though they could not explain why. "We have considered the consequences carefully," she said. "Have you?" The Cretan delegate's voice rumbled like thunder. "Your little planet sits at the edge of civilized space. Without Council protection, any hostile species could destroy you in a week." "Perhaps," Elena agreed, "but that is our choice to make." The delegates laughed. The sound echoed through the great chamber, bouncing off walls that had witnessed 1,000,000 years of galactic history. Little Earth, with its short-lived people and its tiny fleet, thought it could survive alone. It was amusing. It was adorable, really, the way a pet's defiance is adorable. Elena waited for the laughter to stop. Then she picked up her data chip and walked toward the exit. At the door, she paused and turned back. 300 years ago, you welcomed us into your community, she said. You gave us jobs and responsibilities. You let us serve on your ships and in your stations. You allowed us to work in your hospitals and your research centers and your trading posts. We were grateful. We worked hard. We never complained. The chamber was quiet now. Something in her tone had changed. In all that time, Elena continued, you never once asked what we actually did for you. You never checked what systems we maintained, what problems we solved, what disasters we quietly prevented. You just assumed that observer species were not important enough to matter. She opened the door. You should have asked. The door closed behind her. The delegates sat in confused silence for a long moment. Then the Krethan representative let out another rumbling laugh. Let them go, he said. In 6 months they will come crawling back, begging for readmission. Humans always do. They are survivors. They are practical. They will realize they need us. The other delegates agreed. Earth was simply throwing a tantrum. When the humans understood how cold and dangerous the universe was without council protection, they would return. They always did. 3 days later, the first systems began to fail. Nobody connected it to Earth's departure at first. Why would they? Humans were just observers. They answered phones and filed reports and maintained minor equipment. They were helpers, assistants, the people you called when you needed something small done. They were not important. The galaxy was about to learn how wrong it was. 72 hours after Earth's announcement, a cargo ship called the Merchant's Dream dropped out of hyperspace in the wrong star system. The captain, a Velthari trader named Keth, stared at his navigation screen in disbelief. This is impossible, he muttered. We should be at Nexus Station. This is the outer reach. We are 300 light-years off course. His crew checked the navigation computer. The machine was working perfectly. The problem was the software. Somewhere in the millions of lines of code that guided ships across the galaxy, something had changed. Routes that worked yesterday now led nowhere. Calculations that had been reliable for decades now produced errors. Keth contacted the shipping authority. He was not the first to call. He was not even the first 1,000. Across the galaxy, ships were getting lost. Cargo was arriving late or not at all. The great network of trade routes that connected 10,000 worlds was falling apart. And nobody could understand why until a junior analyst discovered the truth. 73% of the galaxy's shipping software had been written by human programmers. Humans were not considered smart enough for important work, but shipping logistics, route optimization, the boring mathematics of moving goods from one place to another, those jobs had been given to humans centuries ago because nobody else wanted them. And humans, being humans, had done those jobs very well. They had improved the systems. They had fixed bugs. They had quietly made everything work better than it had any right to work. Now they were gone. And when they left, they had taken their software licenses with them. The programs still existed, but without human maintenance, without human updates, without human engineers to fix problems, the systems were slowly breaking down. Ships could still fly manually, of course, but efficiency dropped by 60% overnight. Deliveries that once took hours now took days. The great machine of galactic commerce began to grind and stutter. This was bad, but it was nothing compared to what happened on Theron 6. Theron 6 was a mining colony, home to 2 million workers from a dozen different species. When the plague started, the colonial governor followed standard procedure. He contacted the Interspecies Disease Control Network and requested emergency assistance. The IDCN had been saving lives across the galaxy for 1,000 years. They had protocols for every known disease. They had medicines that could cure almost anything. They were fast, efficient, and reliable. Except now they were not answering. The governor tried again, and again. Finally, after 6 hours of silence, a single message came through. It was short and horrible. The IDCN Rapid Response System is currently non-functional. Human personnel who designed and maintained the system have departed. We are working to restore operations. Estimated time to recovery, unknown. The governor felt cold fear spread through his body. What about medicine? He sent back. We need antivirals, standard broad-spectrum treatment. The reply took an hour to arrive. Broad-spectrum antivirals were developed in human laboratories on Earth. Production has ceased. Existing supplies are being rationed. Current waiting list, 4,000 colonies. Estimated delivery time to Theron 6. 7 months. 7 months. The plague would kill everyone on the planet in 2 weeks. The governor made calls. He begged. He offered bribes. But everywhere he turned, the answer was the same. The medicines that worked on hundreds of species, made by humans. The treatment protocols that saved millions of lives each year, designed by humans. The rapid response teams that could contain an outbreak in days, led by humans. And humans were going home. Theron 6 was eventually saved by a smuggler who knew where to find black market human medicine. It cost the colony everything they had. Other colonies were not so lucky. But even these disasters were small compared to the failure of the translation matrix. The matrix was ancient. It had been built by the architects, a species so old that they had died out before most current civilizations learned to use fire. The matrix allowed every species in the galaxy to understand every other species. It turned a universe of alien languages into one shared tongue. Without it, galactic civilization would be impossible. The matrix had been failing for 200 years. Slowly, gradually, its ancient systems were breaking down. But the Council had a solution. They found the one species in the galaxy with what they called a pattern recognition aberration. Humans. Human brains could see patterns in the Matrix's code that no other species could detect. Human linguists had been maintaining the architect's creation for 2 centuries. Now all 12,000 of those linguists were packing their bags. Within a week, the Matrix began to fragment. A Kreth-On ambassador gave a speech about peace and unity. The translation systems turned it into a declaration of war. A trade negotiation between 2 friendly species became a deadly insult. Across the galaxy, words began to fail. The Council held an emergency session. For the first time, they began to truly understand what was happening. "How is this possible?" demanded the Velthari delegate. "Humans are observers. They were never given any position of importance." A junior aide nervously handed him a datapad. It contained a list of every job humans had held across the galaxy. The list was very, very long. "They were given the jobs nobody else wanted," the aide explained. "The boring jobs, the difficult jobs, the jobs that seemed unimportant. And they did all of them, for 300 years. The delegate looked at the list. Shipping logistics, medical research, translation maintenance, infrastructure repair, communications systems, food production oversight, educational software, legal documentation. On and on it went. Thousands of entries, millions of human workers quietly keeping the galaxy running. "We never noticed," he said softly. "We never even looked." The aide nodded. "They never asked us to notice. They just did the work." The delegate set down the datapad. His glow had faded to a dim, worried gray. "What do we do now?" Nobody had an answer. 3 months after Earth severed ties, the galactic credit collapsed. The currency had been stable for 6,000 years. It was backed by a complex system of derivatives and investments that nobody fully understood. The mathematics were ancient. and complicated. The computers that ran the calculations were maintained by specialists who had trained for decades. Those specialists were human. Nobody had planned it that way. Centuries ago, when the financial systems first started showing problems, the Council had assigned a small team of human mathematicians to study them. The job was considered temporary, unimportant. The humans would fix the minor bugs and then move on. But the bugs were not minor. The entire system was broken. It had always been broken. The ancient species who built it had made fundamental errors that should have caused total collapse centuries ago. The humans discovered this quickly. They also discovered that telling anyone would cause immediate panic and galactic economic ruin. So they did not tell anyone. Instead, they quietly fixed problems as they appeared. They adjusted calculations. They patched holes. They held together a failing system through pure skill and constant attention. For 80 years, human economists prevented disasters that would have destroyed trillions of lives. Now they were gone. And within weeks, the patches began to fail. The collapse started slowly. A bank on Nexus Station reported unusual losses. Then another bank. Then a dozen. Within a month, the galactic credit had lost 40% of its value. Savings disappeared. Businesses failed. Species that had been wealthy for millennia suddenly found themselves with nothing. The Council tried to stop the bleeding. They brought in their best financial experts. But without humans to explain the system, nobody could understand how it worked. The equations were incomprehensible. The code was a maze. Everything had been held together by human hands, and those hands were no longer there. While the economy burned, the Krethon Empire faced a different crisis. The Krethon were warriors. Their fleet was the largest and most powerful in the galaxy. Their ships were masterpieces of destruction, capable of wiping out entire civilizations. No species dared challenge them. No enemy could threaten their dominance. On a routine training exercise, 40% of those ships suffered simultaneous engine failures. The Krethon High Command demanded answers. Engineers tore apart the failed engines, searching for sabotage or enemy action. What they found was worse. The Krethon reactor design had a flaw, a tiny error in the core containment system that would cause catastrophic failure after a certain number of operating hours. The flaw had existed for over a century. It should have destroyed the entire fleet decades ago. It had not destroyed the fleet because human engineers had found it first. Humans had been assigned to Krethon ships as maintenance workers. Unimportant positions, manual labor. But those maintenance workers had discovered the flaw and realized that reporting it would cause political disaster. The Krethon would never admit their technology was imperfect. They would deny the problem until their ships exploded. So the humans had implemented a workaround, a small modification to each reactor that prevented the failure. They installed it on every Krethon ship, quietly, without permission, without recognition. They saved millions of Krethon lives, and nobody ever knew. The modification was human intellectual property. When Earth withdrew, the license expired. The Krethon High Commander stared at the report for a long time. His species had mocked humans as weaklings. They had used humans as servants and laborers, and all along, those humans had been secretly keeping the mighty Krethon fleet from self-destructing. "We owe them everything," he finally said, "and we gave them nothing." But the worst revelation was yet to come. Her name was Yira. She was a junior researcher on Veltharis Prime, the homeworld of the Council's most powerful species. She was young and curious, and she asked a question that nobody else had thought to ask. What had humans actually done in the past 300 years? She spent months gathering data. She analyzed every major event in galactic history since humanity joined the community. Every war, every plague, every disaster, every diplomatic triumph. She looked for patterns. What she found changed everything. In every single case, humans had been present at the critical moment. The Corvin War, which nearly destroyed half the galaxy, ended when a human translator discovered a key misunderstanding between the two sides. The Blue Death plague that killed billions, stopped by a human epidemiologist who worked for 3 days without sleep to find the cure. The Nexus Accords, the greatest peace treaty in galactic history, drafted by a human legal assistant whose contribution was never officially recognized. On and on the pattern went. Humans at every turning point, humans solving every problem, humans saving lives and preventing wars and fixing crises that nobody else could fix. And always, always, they were listed as assistants, observers, minor personnel. Their names were in footnotes if they appeared at all. Yira published her findings. The reaction was immediate and furious. Many called her a liar. Others accused her of human propaganda. The council tried to suppress the study, but the evidence was too strong. The pattern was too clear. Slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to accept the truth. The youngest species had been carrying them all. High Chancellor Zeth Voran read the study alone in his chambers. When he finished, he sat in silence for a long time. Then he sent a message to the one human who had remained in the galaxy, a historian named Dr. Sarah Chen, who held neutral academic status. She agreed to meet him. When she arrived, the Chancellor asked the question that burned in his mind. 300 years, he said. 300 years of doing our work, solving our problems, saving our lives, and we treated you like children. We rejected your membership again and again. Why did you never say anything? Why did you never demand recognition? Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she shrugged. You needed help, she said simply. That is what we do. We help. We see a problem and we fix it. We see someone struggling and we assist. It is who we are. But we never thanked you. We never even acknowledged what you did. No, Dr. Chen agreed. You did not. And after 300 years of silence, we grew tired. Not angry, just tired. She stood to leave. We were willing to help forever, she said. We only wanted one thing in return. We wanted to be seen, to be valued, to be treated as equals. You could not give us that. So we left. The Chancellor watched her go. For the first time in his very long life, he felt something he had never experienced before. Shame. 6 months after the severance, the unthinkable happened. The Galactic Council came to Earth. In 10,000 years of galactic history, the Council had never traveled to a non-member world. They summoned others to them. They did not go begging to anyone. But desperation had become their constant companion. The economy was in ruins. Ships wandered lost through space. Plagues spread unchecked. Wars erupted over translation errors. Everything was falling apart. So 12 delegates boarded a ship and made the long journey to Sol System. The Velthari delegate watched Earth grow larger through the window. He had seen images of the planet before. A small blue world, nothing special. A backwater at the edge of civilized space. He expected to find it struggling, desperate, ready to negotiate from weakness. What he found instead made him go silent. Earth was beautiful. The great cities gleamed with clean energy and green spaces. The oceans were clear and full of life. The air was fresh. Poverty, which had plagued humanity for millennia, had nearly disappeared. Art and music filled the streets. Children played without fear. Everyone seemed healthy and happy. The delegates did not understand. Earth had left the galactic community. They should be suffering. They should be begging to return. How is this possible? The Krethon delegate asked their guide, a young human official. You have no access to galactic trade, no protection from hostile species. How are you thriving? The guide smiled politely. Before the severance, humanity was sending 90% of its output into galactic service. Our best scientists worked on your problems. Our best engineers maintained your systems. Our best doctors treated your sick. We gave everything we had to the galaxy, and we received very little in return. She gestured at the city around them. When we stopped giving everything away, we finally had enough for ourselves. The delegates had no response to this. The meeting took place in New Geneva, in a building that had once been the headquarters for humanity's galactic relations. Now it served as the center of Earth's new government. Elena Vasquez, former ambassador and current Secretary General, welcomed the council with perfect politeness. "We appreciate you making the journey," she said, showing them to a conference room. "I understand the galactic situation has become difficult." The Velthari delegate spoke carefully. He had practiced this speech many times. "Secretary General Vasquez, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we have come to offer our sincere apologies. For 3 centuries, humanity has served the galactic community with dedication and skill. We failed to recognize your contributions. We failed to treat you as equals. We were wrong." Elena nodded, but said nothing. "We are prepared to offer full membership in the Council immediately," the delegate continued. "Humanity will have voting rights equal to any elder species. We will also provide substantial reparations for the centuries of unpaid service. Additionally, we will broadcast a formal apology across all galactic networks, acknowledging humanity's contributions to civilization." The other delegates nodded eagerly. This was an extraordinary offer. No species had ever been elevated so quickly. No apology had ever been so public. They expected Elena to accept immediately. Instead, she simply said, "Thank you for the offer. We decline." The silence that followed lasted a very long time. "You decline?" The Crethon delegate finally managed. "We are offering you everything you asked for." 300 years ago, yes, this would have been everything we wanted, Elena agreed. But things have changed. We have changed. The offer you are making would put humanity back into the same broken system, a system where power comes from age, where worth comes from technology, where young species are ignored until they become old species. She leaned forward. "We are not interested in joining your system. We are building something better." The delegates exchanged confused looks. Building what? The Terran Cooperative. Elena activated a display on the wall. It showed a map of the galaxy, with hundreds of worlds highlighted in blue. For centuries, the Council only accepted species that met certain criteria, ancient civilizations with advanced technology. But there are thousands of younger species out there who have been ignored just like we were. Talented, creative, hardworking peoples who are told they are not good enough. She gestured at the blue dots. 340 of them have already applied to join us. More arrive every day. The cooperative will accept any species, regardless of age or technology level. The only requirement is a willingness to contribute and cooperate, to help each other, to build together. The Velthari delegate felt something cold in his chest. "You are creating a rival to the Council." "We are creating an alternative," Elena corrected. "One based on equality instead of hierarchy, on service instead of power, on cooperation instead of domination." "This is madness," the Crethon delegate growled. "You cannot simply upend 10,000 years of galactic order." "We are not forcing anyone to join us," Elena replied calmly. "The Council can continue as it always has, but we will no longer participate in a system that does not value us, and neither will the species who join the cooperative." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "You have one galactic standard year to decide. The cooperative will be officially founded whether you join or not. You can be part of building something new, or you can watch from outside while the galaxy moves on without you." She turned back to face them. "The choice is yours, but I should warn you, the species already joining us, they are young, they are hungry, they are full of new ideas and fresh energy. They remind me very much of humanity, 300 years ago." Her smile held no malice, only truth. "They are the future. The only question is whether the Council will be part of it." The delegates left Earth in stunned silence. They had come expecting to save their civilization by bringing humanity back. Instead, they faced a choice that would define the next 10,000 years of galactic history: join the humans as equals, or be left behind. For species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, it was the hardest decision they had ever faced. 1 year later, the galaxy gathered to witness something that had never happened before. The founding day of the Terran Cooperative was held on a station orbiting Earth. It was a new structure, built in just 10 months by species working together. Krethan engineers had worked beside human architects. Velthari scientists had collaborated with young species whose names the Council had never bothered to learn. The station was ugly and beautiful at the same time, a mix of 100 different building styles that somehow worked together. Elena Vasquez stood at the central podium, looking out at the delegates filling the great assembly hall. There were over 3,000 species represented. Some were ancient and powerful. Others had only developed space travel in the last century. All of them had come for the same reason. They wanted to be part of something new. The vote had not been easy. When the Council returned from Earth a year ago, they had faced the most divisive debate in their history. For months, the elder species argued about what to do. Pride fought against survival. Tradition battled necessity. In the end, 8 of the 12 Council species voted to join the cooperative. The Velthari were first, to the shock of many. High Chancellor Zethvoran had addressed his people with unusual honesty. "We have 2 choices," he had said. "We can cling to our status as we have always been. We can pretend that our age makes us superior, that our traditions make us wise, or we can accept that the universe has changed and change with it." His bioluminescent glow had pulsed with emotion as he continued. "For 300 years, we had helpers who asked for nothing but respect. We gave them nothing, and they gave us everything. When they finally left, we learned how small we really are. I do not want to be small anymore. I want to grow." The Velthari joined the cooperative the next day. Others followed, but 4 species refused. The Krethan Empire split in a civil war. Half of their worlds joined the cooperative. The other half declared themselves an independent power, swearing to never bow to primitive species. The old Galactic Council continued to exist, but now it governed only 200 worlds, a tiny shadow of what it once was. On Founding Day, Elena welcomed them all. "Today we begin something unprecedented," she said, her voice carrying across the hall. "For the first time in galactic history, species will work together as true equals, not because of age or power or technology, but because of our shared commitment to each other." She looked around the room at the countless different beings who had come together. "The old system told us that worth comes from strength, that respect must be earned through dominance, that young species must wait their turn while the elders decide their fate. We reject this." Applause began to ripple through the crowd. In the cooperative, every voice matters. Every contribution counts. A species with 1,000,000 years of history has the same vote as a species that achieved spaceflight last year. Because wisdom does not come from age alone. It comes from cooperation, from listening, from helping each other grow. When she finished, the applause became a roar. Later that day, High Chancellor Zethvoran gave his own speech. The former leader of the Council's most powerful species stood before the assembly with none of his usual pride. His glow was soft, almost humble. "I have lived for 8,000 years, he said. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species achieve greatness and destroy themselves. I thought I understood everything there was to understand about the universe." He paused. "I was wrong." The hall was completely silent. When humans first joined the galactic community, we looked at their short lives and their young civilization, and we felt superior. We gave them menial tasks. We told them they were not ready for responsibility. We never considered that they might be teaching us something. He turned to look at Elena, who stood nearby. Humans helped us for 300 years, not because they were weak or subservient, but because that is who they are. They see a problem and they fix it. They see someone struggling and they help. They do not wait to be asked. They do not demand recognition. They simply do what needs to be done. His voice grew thick with emotion. We called them children because we were afraid. Afraid to admit that their passion and their energy and their endless capacity for growth put our ancient, tired civilizations to shame. We were not protecting them from responsibility. We were protecting ourselves from change. He bowed his head. The humans left because we gave them no choice. But even in leaving, they showed us mercy. They could have let the galaxy collapse. They could have watched us destroy ourselves. Instead, they built something better and invited us to join. He looked up again, his glow now bright and steady. That is not the action of children. That is the action of wise and generous beings who understand something we had forgotten. That true strength is not about domination. It is about lifting others up. The applause for his speech was even louder than for Elena's. That evening, when the ceremonies were over and the delegates had departed for their worlds, Elena stood alone in her office. The station orbited slowly above Earth, and through her window she could see the planet where humanity had been born. It looked small and fragile against the vastness of space. Her aide, a young man named Marcus, knocked and entered. "Congratulations, Secretary General," he said. "The founding day was a success. The cooperative is officially born." Elena nodded but did not turn from the window. "Are you happy?" Marcus asked. "We did it. We changed the galaxy." Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. "For 300 years, we carried the galaxy on our shoulders. We did it silently, without complaint, without recognition. And when we finally stopped, everything fell apart." She turned to face him. "That was our mistake, too. We should have spoken up sooner. We should have demanded respect instead of hoping it would be given. Carrying everyone's weight in silence was not noble. It was enabling. We let them treat us badly because we were too proud to ask for what we deserved." Marcus considered this. So the severance was not just about them learning a lesson. It was about us learning one too. "Yes," Elena said. "Sometimes love means walking away, not to punish, but to let others learn to stand on their own and to remind yourself that you deserve to be valued." She looked back out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3,000 species were beginning a new journey together. It would not be easy. There would be conflicts and failures and moments of doubt, but there would also be growth, change, hope. The galaxy spent 10,000 years building hierarchies, Elena said softly, deciding who mattered and who did not, who deserved power and who deserved to serve. Today, we started something different, something based on the simple idea that everyone has worth. She smiled, and for a moment she looked very young. Now the real work begins. Outside, the stars shone bright against the endless dark, and across the galaxy, for the first time in history, every species looked at the future and saw themselves reflected in it. The age of masters and servants was over. The age of cooperation had begun.